Well, according to Geograph, hello friends. It's been a little while since I've done one of these, for a very simple reason. We've had the most brutal spring and early summer. It has rained non-stop since New Year's Day, which is not exactly conducive to tramping around fields looking for old things. But a bit of a break in the weather. Lovely here in Ireland, but right now poor old mainland Europe's getting fair baked. But while the mainland burns, we're kind of on the periphery of it. So we're getting a bit of cloudy weather, but it's warm and it's not raining. So that is definitely a welcome change. So I've just finished work and I'm going to make a short video today. There's a little site close by where I am, Meehanboy, which is taken from the Irish Meehan, which is either a sapling or a meadow. I can't get a good handle on that one. It depends on who you ask and what sources you look at. And Boy is yellow, so it's either the yellow sapling or the little yellow field. And there's a portal tomb there, an ancient monument about 5,500 years old, that we're going to go look at, have a little stroll. And meanwhile, we'll make our way up this little boreen. That's what we call these little roads in Ireland. In the States, we'd call them two tracks, where you'd have the ruts of two wheels on each side and the green verge down the middle. But in Ireland, we call them boreens. The Irish for road is boher, which comes from two words. Bo is cow, and here is path or direction. So the Irish for road literally translates as the way of the cow. And then to make a diminutive adverb on anything, we'd add een at the end, which makes it small. So boher is road, bohereen is little road, or to anglicise it, boreen. So we'll make our way down the end of this boreen and we'll go find our ancient tomb and enjoy the no rain. Thank God for that. So we're standing in some lovely woodland here, little patch of native forestry, kind of a rolling landscape. We'll head up this little path. Now this is a bridle path, it's called. It's a trackway that was preserved for horse riding. You can see it goes back some time, just judging by the nature of these embankment walls covered in moss. Walking up, all I can hear are the birds overhead and all this trees. Now this is quite the landscape. School children back in the 60s found Neolithic polished stone axe heads just in these trees on the ground and exposed cuts, telling us that this place has been populated thousands of years, going back to early farmers. And indeed, just in here, you can just make out an embankment with these trees on it. Now these trees go around in a circle, and the locals here have very strong stories connecting this tree circle with the fairies, all sorts of local superstitions and traditions around this. Now the bank tells you what's going on. That bank is the remains of an old ring fort, and in fact this area is called Lisna Drolene in Irish, which means the fort of the wrens. And as we stand here, like all you can hear overhead, sure enough, are blackbirds and wrens. Countryside is alive with them. So there's Lisna Drolene. And that, of course, being a ring fort, would be about 2,000 years old, we'll say. Maybe slightly less. But right up to the end of the late Iron Age, early medieval period. So 500 to 1000 AD-ish. But we'll continue along this bridle path. Now this bridle path itself is steeped in local folklore. We're heading west along it, walking kind of towards County Galway. And just behind us, about 10 kilometres away, is the city of Athlone that straddles the River Shannon. And during the Williamite Wars in the 1690s, there was 2 sieges at Athlone, where the Williamite forces were attacking the Jacobites. And in this case, now the Jacobites had actually buggered off to France after the Battle of the Boyne. One English king had scarpered and left the other to take control of Ireland, and now he was facing a confederation of Irish and French allies. So there was a siege in Athlone, 2 sieges, and by the second siege the city fell. But local stories, local traditions tell of reinforcements gathered in the local Roscommon countryside, making their way to Athlone along this path. It's quite evocative. Then, of course, after Athlone fell, they'd have been going the other direction, and then about 30 kilometres to our west is the town of Aughrim, where there was the next battle, and it was the bloodiest battle ever fought on Irish soil. Again, the Williamite forces won. The French scattered, and at that point, leaving the Irish to themselves, and then you had the siege of Limerick and flight of the Earls and the wild geese and all the rest of it. But we'll continue down our path now. I don't know if this microphone will be picking up all the birds. Nothing but wrens. I hear some starling, I hear some blackbirds. Beautiful countryside. And now down here, there she is. There's our portal tomb, totally overgrown, almost invisible from this direction. But there you go, there's our capstone, sitting on top of the uprights. The capstone is believed to weigh about 25 tons. And you can see from the layering that's made from the local, well, obviously the local bedrock, which is a type of limestone, a sedimentary rock, hence the layers. At some point, I think, in this century, this back end was resting on another rock that fell over, and the whole capstone slipped back. Didn't fall over entirely, thankfully. So it would originally have been sitting up on top of this lad. So there's our side support stones. And there's the interior of the dolmen. Spectacular. Needless to say now, we're totally immersed in folklore and mythology at these kind of sites. This quiet little valley. What's interesting about dolmens is they're not always very prominently placed, and in fact you can see we've got a hill going up that way, a hill going up that way. It dips down a little more into the valley and then comes up on the other side. So this lad is actually down in a hollow, not designed to be seen from a distance at all. Just blends right into the landscape. This ancient tomb, about 5,500 years old. So in or around the same age as the Great Pyramids, maybe a little older, in Egypt. Wrap your head around that. But it's a great example of a portal tomb. Very pretty little snail shell. We'll leave him alone. Now, a few of these portal tombs have been excavated over the years, and generally what's found with them is cremated burials in the centre chamber. Famous excavation at a very famous one in County Clare resulted in about 30-ish cremations being identified. Men, women and children. All dating from the Neolithic, the Irish farm age, the first farm age, the end of the Stone Age, when agriculture first showed up. And there's a tradition of megaliths all over the country. There's say a couple of different types of megaliths. You have the famous passage graves that you find in Newgrange. There's portal dolmens like the one we just saw. There's another one type called a court cairn. And then there's wedge tombs. And they're all kind of dispersed across the country. So you'll find examples of all of them in all the provinces, but there's definite concentration. So for example, the Portal Tomb that we just saw, they're typically associated with the northern half of the country. Passage graves are typically found in a band that goes from the northwest across to the northeast. Starts around Sligo, heads over towards Meath. But like I said, you'll find examples everywhere of all the types. And that's kind of fascinating thinking about it, that you had this Neolithic culture, this farming culture, that had these very different funerary traditions, which appear to have been regionally based, but all involved moving and placing giant boulders, high degrees of engineering, and all the work that would have been needed to support that effort. Kind of incredible. And of course then the Neolithic, if you want to look at the Irish mythological record, that corresponds with the arrival of our first farmers. Imagine what that would have looked like to the people who were already here. This magical people that would have had the power to bring food out of the earth, animal husbandry, all these things that would have been revolutionary, very alien to the original settlers in Ireland. And so you look at our mythological record and you start wondering, in our book of invasions, is this the Tuatha Dé Danann showing up? And the Firbolg, the original settlers, looking at these people and getting on well with them at first, but inevitably battles for land took over and the two people went to war. And of course the Tuatha Dé Danann came out on top. But places like this are just so steeped in folklore, and as you walk through these forests, little oasis of tranquility and birdsong, really a magical feeling in these places. And of course place names like Lishna Drolin, hard to beat that. Anyway, back to the car and on we go.